Hello and welcome to another episode of Alan Writes. This is the Winter of Truth. We're probably in episode 20. If we're not in episode 20, then it's 19 or 21. Take your pick. So here we go. We've gotten her. She's escaped from the rebels, and she's maybe killed a Wampa. Who knows? It's best to keep those things off screen so you don't conflict with canon too much anywhere. Maybe the Wampa got off in time and simply didn't chase her down because it was badly injured at that point. Maybe it was scared off by the flames. Maybe. The more gaps you leave, the more uncertainty you leave, the more another writer can come along and plug it readily into the canon. As long as you don't make it too wibbly-wobbly, let alone timey-wimey, you should be fine with writing to someone else's universe. Anyway, smaller but hopeful. Stagger towards it. It was crushed. Topped out. The imprint was unmistakable. Oh, to her eyes. Basically, she works with AT-ATs. She knows what their footprints look like. And AT-AT had stomped on the front half on this. Thankfully, just the front half. The back half looked largely intact. That meant that maybe the engine could still be primed. She got into she got down. Okay, well, how's she going to? She stepped onto the hull. The engine cowling had been disturbed, had been rendered. Rendered? It doesn't like rendered. Why doesn't it like rendered? Come on, spell check. Well, but honestly, rendered? Rendered. Rent off. Oh. When the armored, whatever those are called something very specific. Had lifted its there's something specifically it's called. Anyway, we'll look it up later. Had lifted its foot up. Otherwise, and snow had drifted in, but not too much. Was the odd thing about wintry planets. They generally didn't generate enough water vapor to freeze it back into snow. Their layers were from years of accumulation, often being as dry as a desert, which is a thing. Like, for example, like the Antarctic or Greenland. Well, the Antarctic specifically doesn't get a lot of snowfall, or let alone rainfall, or anything like that. It's generally just a lot of accumulation over many years, and you can see that around some of the various Arctic science research bases. where they've got it discolors from the fumes and people moving around, and it goes black, and it generally stays that way because it doesn't because the tainted stuff isn't able to melt completely down. It just sort of lingers on there as long as it can. Anyway, so a check of the electronics found them dead. The breakers had tripped, likely on impact, likely on initial impact. The pilot had made a soft landing, but that was neither here nor there. She worked the auxiliary unit, cranking it around to generate a spark, and the engine didn't lurch, it doesn't bark, it doesn't trembled to life. The awful scent of a cracked fuel casing rose up. But there wasn't much she could do for that now. But there wasn't. Heat is what she needed, and so she made certain to set it for zero thrust. Zero thrust. Idling mode. Zero thrust idling mode. It didn't like that. But it didn't have to. Tools, she thought. I need something more than my shank. Controls. Cranking the handle around and around to. I need something more than my shank. The cockpit was smashed, but also open. She climbed down in and startled to find idling mode. No lights. She fixed that with by bridging a gap with the topside caution bulb. Bridging a gap with the topside. Yeah, I need her to be able to see. I'm bridging a gap with her shank to the topside caution bulb. Electricity. That is not how you spell electricity. But it could be. No, it can't. All right. So electricity arced. The yellow light flared and died. Flared again. Better than nothing. Tools, she thought. Anything more than something to work with. But also open. She's climbed down and startled to find a shrunken corpse, clad in pilot togs, at the gunnery control. At the reversed gunnery control. The reversed gunnery control. Back with the pilot. The rebel had been left behind. They're brutal even to their own. She thought as she executed a quick search. The gunner had a few things on him. The pilot's recess had a few things on him. Had a spanner, a gap inducer, and some wires. The pilot's recess also held a few things that hadn't been crushed. A driver, a knife, and a glass vial filled with sand. She stared at that. What the freck? What the freck? Had made the bring that along? Was obviously keepsake. Token that most pilots brought to their cockpits in the hopes of bringing them luck. She had engineered spaces for exactly that in most in the attic cockpit. Something after a review had indicated a clear boost to morale when that was done, was allocated. People liked to own their spaces. But sand? Who cared about sand enough to encase it in Stroner glass? Impact glass. Let's call it impact. She pocketed it anyway. It could hold fuel if nothing else. It could hold fuel. It had an opening she could pry at and hold fuel, if nothing else. All right. All right. Went back to the engine, and her hands were shaking. Warmth. Happy warmth flowed through her by proximity. Yeah, there was some ionization, but that wasn't the quick killer. That could also be fixed. She looked around and realized that everything beyond the engine vents was now dark. Beyond the engine vents and short of the snow was now just a streak of dark. Need lights. Need lights. Need lights. To work. She fixed that by. Her hands were shaking when she went back to the engine. Okay, let's go back to the engine. There was enough fuel to work with. Let's not have. There wasn't a lot of fuel to work with, and she set about increasing the efficiency, such as it was, by having the engine generate warmth solely through the vents, largely through the vents. All right, so there's got to be a trade-off for that. By having to generate what? Meant killing the power to ever so many other systems. By isolating wires and capping them off. By isolating wires, we can't ground them. Wire caps and a few stiff wires, stiff bypass wires. No, we're just going to give it bypass wires. I want to make her seem as clever as possible here, and that's the goal. This is her element. Wires and using the isolating by running the bypass wires in a circuit to divert power away from things that would never run. There was no need to charge the blaster cannons ever again. No rations. She at last had the well, let's go back to the corpse. The gunner's nook. He'd put away a spanner. She had at last had the system stable. She considered the next priority. Water. Easy enough. Melted ice. Melted ice worked well. Wasn't anything to eat, but she there wasn't anything to eat. Maybe the dead gunner had something on him, and he did. Though though it felt wrong to hunt through his pockets. And though it felt wrong to hunt through his pockets, she made the effort. All right. There was a hollow cube. There was a hollow cube in there. There was a hollow cube in there, and a ration bar. She took both. She took both back to the engine. Back to the engine. And frozen. And as the heat thawed her dinner, she activated the cube. A blue light shone as the image of a young man, dark hair and lean features. Filled the air. "Hey, sis," he said. The image said. "I know you haven't heard from me in a while, but I know you haven't heard from me in a while." This is going to be basically Dak's last message to his sister. I don't know who Dak is or where he came from. All that he was Luke's gunner, and he must have been good because he was paired with Luke Skywalker. He's very confident at the very least. All right. So you haven't heard from me in a while, but I'm fine. No, you're not. Finara thought as she glanced over at the corpse in the gunner's slot. The gunner's pit. The gunnery pit of the French speeder. You should have stayed home, stayed loyal, and lived. They realized good a shot I am, the image said. They realized how good a shot I am. They paired me up with Skywalker. And I shot him with the harpoon. They paired me up with Skywalker. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? I'm here, fighting the fire with Luke's. What? Stared at the image. This was Skywalker's speeder? This was Skywalker's speeder? But the news channels had never said he was on Hoth. Can you imagine that? The image said. The young man's features filling with joy. I'm fighting. Doesn't get any better than that. Feel like I could do anything. Could do anything. Feel like I could do anything. No. No, you can't. Finara thought as she reached out to turn off the cube. It would the cube to provide light. At least then it would be. It wavered. A klaxon sounded. Recorded klaxon sounded. I've got to go. Something's up. Take care, and I'll be home soon. As she considered how to set the cube to provide light on it. Maybe, Finara allowed. The Empire is kind. Odd. As she flicked the button and turned the image into a simple blue light. But I doubt it. And I doubt your sister will appreciate the attention you are drawing to her. Finara wiped the memory of the cube. Finara wiped the memory of the cube. Then formatted the drive, just to be sure. Was the least she could do for a man who given her a mobile light. That in mind, she went back into the cockpit, began a thorough search. Anything and everything she could salvage. The night wasn't over. The night wasn't over. And maybe Skywalker had left her something more than a ration bar to eat. Yes, he had. More than a single ration bar to eat. Yes, he had. Alright, I need something. She also has to eat the. I don't know. What kind of corpse in the gunnery pit? There was a jalapeno. She took back to the engine and activated the cube. Alright, so Dak didn't have a ration bar. It didn't seem like he'd carry one. Yes, he had a full survival pack that he'd left behind for some reason. In it, a frozen solid ration bar. That she thawed atop the engine. He thawed atop the engine. And then gobbled down afterward. Engine was no. It was a flavorless thing, designed that way to keep people. It was a flavorless protein, designed that way to keep people from eating them, except in an emergency. Which is what they did with the original D-ration bar in World War II. It tasted like a flavorless potato, and for good reason, because even though it was supposed to be chocolate, so to speak, they didn't want people eating them as chocolate. So they made them flavorless as possible, like a boiled potato, from eating them except in an emergency. Designed that way to keep people except in an emergency. But it filled her stomach and let her consider what came next. The engine hummed on amid the dark of night. A survival pack that he left behind for some reason. In the dark of night. Keeping the cold back as best it could. Keeping the cold back as best it could. Her, it's not a makeshift engine, it's a, salvaged engine hummed on in the dark of night, keeping the cold back as best it could. Alright, and we're going to go to another chapter with this. Chapter 5 or whatever. Let's put on... She gets rescued. She's going to get rescued. The rebel survive pack has a radio. Radio that she fixes. The imps locate her, seize her, and take her in. Identity must be confirmed. They don't know who she is. She knows who she is. They don't know who she is. Or did they send the DT troopers? Orders. DT troopers and Lawner. Know her, but again, orders. Okay, and interesting things was a frozen ration bar. She thawed that. Thawed the beige length and then gobbled it down. And gobbled down the protein afterwards. It was flavorless. Flavorless. No better than a boot sole. And designed that way to keep people from eating it. Except in emergency. But the protein filled her stomach and let her consider what came next. Alright, there we go. This has been the Winter of Truth. I'm going to wrap things up here. I hope you've enjoyed this. We're going somewhere. She's showing off her skills. She's going to get rescued. We're going to get into the second part of it where it's a thriller, where she's stumbled upon the fact that Skywalker was on the planet, that there's going to be a security review because of that, and things are going to tumble off. And we're going to see where we go from there, because I don't know. I don't know yet. First draft, don't know. Could go anywhere. Who knows? I don't. Not yet. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you stay safe out there, and take care. Thanks.